Hello, welcome to the Batteries Included podcast. It's September the 8th, 2023, and this is episode number 2. Thank you very much for joining us. On today's show, we'll be talking about the cars and concepts of IAA Mobility 2023, or as some call it, the International Motor Show of Germany, the debut of Lotus Emeya, and Kyle drives the Volkswagen ID.7 and the updated ID.4, and of course, much, much more. I'm Dominic Yoni, host of the YouTube channel Drive Electric with Dominic. Joining us today is the supercharged Mr. Tom Malogney, senior editor at Inside EVs and host of the YouTube channel State of Charge. And of course, we also have Kyle Connor, who joins us from the majestic, practically palatial halls of Out of Spec Studio, maybe the hills, I don't know, where he produces high voltage videos for a number of YouTube channels. So actually, Kyle, I should say hills because you are in Switzerland this morning. So Guten Morgen, I guess you say, in at least the German part of Switzerland.
Yeah, but this is like the Italian-speaking portion because I'm right on that Italian border.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, I don't really speak any Italian. I don't
Yeah,
really speak
me
any
either.
German either.
Yeah, I don't know. It was so funny. Everyone in the big cities, of course, speaks English, but here, no, we've been going to these little restaurants and things. No one speaks English, and so it's a lot of hand signals and pointing, and it's been great.
Right on. All right, so we have lots of cars to talk about today. Mostly with you, I guess, Kyle, because you were in Europe for the IAA, the German. It used to be the Frankfurt Motor Show, right? Remember that? Yeah. So our attention has been on Munich, Germany, all week with the IAA taking place there. But yesterday, an exciting new car was unveiled on our side of the Atlantic in New York City by a British automaker that's owned by the Chinese giant Geely, and that is the Lotus Emeya. So looking very much like a sports sedan version of the Electra. Lotus calls it a Hyper GT. So I don't know if we can pull up a video here. So the top spec of the Emeya, it's very much like. Oops, let me silence that. So the Emeya is very much like the Electra. I believe it has like a really similar powertrain, drivetrain, and it actually it kind of looks a lot like a sedan version of the Electra, which you drove. Was that 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, roughly 2 weeks ago, I drove their electric SUV, the Electra, as you say. And, I think a lot of our viewers are not familiar with Lotus and electrification. Lotus is now under the Geely umbrella, of course. So they're getting really the top spec stuff from Geely because Lotus, of course, is a premium brand. But now it's going into this entirely new direction where the cars are, yes, fast, but also quite content rich, quite heavy, and all of those things. So yeah, Dom, as you said, I drove the electric SUV from them. It's called the Electra. There's 3 different trim levels, up to 900 and something horsepower. Really fascinating car. And now we have basically the sedan version of that.
Right. So yeah, 905 horsepower, 727 pound-feet of torque, same as the Electra R, the spicy version. So I imagine there's going to be some lower, some tamer versions of this as well, but they're starting off with the top specs, of course. And it's got the 2-speed transmission like the Electra does as well. 0 to 60 or 62 because they do the 0 to 100 kilometers an hour. So 2.78 seconds. Top speed of 159 miles an hour. So the battery is said to be this is kind of interesting too. The battery is said to be 102 kilowatt hours. So the Electra supposedly has 112 kilowatt hours, and so I wonder if they give us the gross for
gross
one.
and usable. Yeah,
they give us the gross for the first one, and now they're giving us the usable for the second one, I guess.
Well, we really talked to them as well and said, if you're going to display a number, make sure it's the usable number that you're communicating. I don't know if that had any effect on it, but I was talking to the guys who write all the stuff.
Right.
And I'm usable, so much more important than the gross capacity.
Right. It's what we all, look at. That's the energy that we can actually use at least when it's brand new. So it's like an 800 volt system, and it charges from 10 to 80% in 18 minutes. So like a super fast charger. It's got an electronically controlled air suspension system. So it has onboard sensors, and it can feel the road 1,000 times a second, which is kind of crazy, and adjust accordingly to make the ride nice and smooth. And it's coming to the market next year, 2024. So this is like not like a far off concept or anything. Is like on the cusp of being made practically. And so we'll hear more about the market availability and pricing as on a future date. But if you want to see it and you happen to be in New York City, you can go Saturday. You can just Google Studio Emeya. That's EMEYA. And then you can find a link to Eventbrite and get some free tickets. And I believe it's somewhere in Manhattan. I'm not exactly sure where. But yeah, so that's what I have at Tom, what do you think of this thing? Let me see if I can pull you up some pictures.
Yeah. So, I mean, overall, I really like how it looks. The only thing I'll comment on is I'll say, I wish that they paid more homage to the Lotus brand. If I were to just see this, I would say, oh, that's probably, a hypercar from a Chinese car company, which basically, when it comes down to it, is now. But like, I just wish it had more styling cues to, remind me that this is a Lotus and not just some, say, new brand that started. That's just my take on it. I think it looks great. This numbers seem really nice. It seems like they have good stats, but I wish it had a little bit more Lotus in it, in my opinion.
All right. So how do you think this is going to drive, Kyle? I mean, you really like the Electra, right? Does this sway you in at all?
It all comes down to the driving experience, because the numbers on paper for the price that you're paying, no one can compete with what Tesla's done for the Plaid pricing. Of course, that car is basically 90 grand and it's 0 to 60 in 2 seconds and has 1,020 horsepower and doesn't need a 2-speed transmission like this one does. However, this does win on the charging performance, 355 kilowatt charging or so, and it just holds amazing power deep into the battery pack. Again, 10 to 80 in 18 minutes on 100 and something kilowatt hour battery pack is the new market leader for charging. There's nothing that can come close unless you're talking semi-truck charging. I mean, it's really next level. So we have to try all of this. I think this might be the ultimate cannonball car. Actually, we really fell in love with the Electra because we loved the interior materials, the software, the way the car felt. It was quite exotic. It was cool, but it's also very expensive. And so you're not paying for the performance figures. You're paying for how the car looks and feels and handles and all of the intangibles that can't be shown on a spreadsheet. Because, personally, I think the Electra is probably better for our needs in a car. I think just having an SUV, living in Colorado, needing to get through snowy and dirt roads, that's more appealing to me. I'm also not so much of a sedan guy, but I mean, props to them for making this. It's going to do really well.
You're not a sedan guy? Oh, I guess you're not a sedan guy, like a wagon guy then?
Yeah, totally a wagon person. Absolutely. And I just have a video that went up 30 minutes ago on a car, a brand new release that we should talk about for sure.
Yeah, actually, let's just take a moment and talk about that right now. I mean, why not? I have it farther down in the running order, but whatever. It's I caught the first like 10 minutes of it this morning, really quick.
Yeah, sure.
Because I was excited about seeing that one coming up. Yeah. So tell us what you drove.
Yep. So it's the NIO ET5 Touring. So for those who don't know, NIO is a Chinese automaker that has been building EVs for seemingly 5 years now. Tom, what do you think? It seems like they're not the oldest brand, but they're certainly one of the early big Chinese ones.
Yeah, they were probably the first, like the biggest first all electric brand to come out of China. The first one to announce they were going to be all electric, and they had a tremendous amount of financing at the time, and they need it with their battery swap plan. It's incredibly capital intense. So and I've driven them, not this latest version, but I've driven NIOs in the past over in China, and it's a premium brand. That's one thing that I think a lot of people don't get. The vehicles these are upscale vehicles. They seem to be built very well, put together very well. And they're not competing, say, directly with a Xpeng, for instance, which is like a more affordable down market vehicle. The NIOs are quality, premium vehicles.
Yep, 100%. And I think just like really improving with each model that I drive. I've now driven most of the model lineup, and had the ET5 sedan actually before I took the wagon. We had to give it back because of scheduling, but we are getting it again next week. It's been a bit complicated with all the test cars and everything we have to film this trip, but we borrowed this one. This is part of the first launch of ET5 Touring, so we were among the first media to drive it in Europe. They had already had a Chinese program earlier, and it's essentially their Model 3 sized vehicle turned into a wagon. It might be slightly larger than Model 3. I don't know dimensionally ET5 versus Model 3, but they also have an ET7, which is like a Model S competitor. So this is, think Model 3 series size, somewhere between 3 and a 5 series. They then took that same base platform, made it into a stunning wagon, and in conjunction with this launch, we're finding out, have completely overhauled the performance of the car. NIO gave us the keys and basically said, oh yeah, it's unchanged from the sedan you've been driving. But I noticed almost twice, if not more than twice the amount of regen. And a problem with NIO has always been the charging performance because they do battery swap in China. And I think the old Chinese GB port had some limitations as well, but they never charged more than 130 kilowatt peak. Now, incredibly, I plugged it in at 50% just because I was like, let's just see what happens. I wish I ran it all the way out now, but I plugged in at 50% and it shot up to 180 something kilowatts and held that all the way to 75% before it just slowly came off. So it went from one of the worst charging EVs to one of the best charging EVs with just this flat curve at 180 kilowatts from at least 50 to 80% or so. That is a massive improvement. And for them not to communicate that to people was like wild. So I texted the PR person for NIO in China, who I know, and I was like, so what the heck is this all about? And she was like, oh, well, we're not really ready to tell anyone about it yet, but like, okay, you showed the world. I'm like, why wouldn't you want to launch that with the car? Like, you're pushing the batteries. I'm not sure. I think it's got to be for all NIOs because I had just the standard 100 kilowatt hour battery pack in this car that can swap between any of them. So this is great news because there's not battery swap stations everywhere, especially in Europe. So the cars still need to charge well. It's quiet. It's comfortable. It has amazing software. It's got dog mode, camp mode, good driver assistance, really nice build quality and materials. Sound system is meh, but everything else is pretty great. 200 kilometers an hour top speed doesn't matter for any market except for Germany, which is fine. It's very stable at high speed. Car handles very nice. And it's half the price of a relatively base Taycan, which is just great.
So you think half the price? So you said the price is, I think it's like 50,000, but then the battery for the small battery is an extra 12,000. How much is the big battery?
They actually don't change the pricing because I showed the configurator on the video as well, and the pricing doesn't update in real time. So it was hard to know exactly all of the numbers. I think it's still a few months away from market launch, but it seems like base car is going to be 49 grand. Well, I think that's all the car you need, honestly. The 100 kilowatt hour battery pack will definitely cost you more, but I really don't recommend buying the battery. I need to look a little bit more into the battery as a service system, but you're not able to use the swap systems if you buy the battery. They won't let you swap. So you have to lease it or rent it every month if you want to swap. And then what happens when you sell the car or you sell it to a dealer? I don't actually know how that process works. I need to research it a bit more. But I think it would get really messy in our market.
Right. Battery swapping hasn't really taken foot here at all. But there's that company Ample, I believe, who's doing some in San Francisco, working at it for fleets and some cars. But yeah, it's still not like in Europe or in China where NIO is really taking the lead on that.
And sorry to interrupt, my friend Jan, who I did a whole bunch of NIOs with, who lives in Norway, who's very involved with electric cars there. He also recommends to rent the battery, lease the battery from NIO. Do not buy it. It doesn't make sense to buy it from NIO, in my impression.
Okay. They didn't say how much the subscription was. The monthly.
It's 169 euros a month.
Okay, and then when you swap it out, you get charged for whatever energy in that operation, probably as well.
No, I don't think so. It just swaps.
Free unlimited swaps.
Oh, okay. That's a consideration then. So NIO is also famously known for having the little AI Nomi guide. Did you use that at all? Is it working for English yet?
Oh yeah, works for English pretty much perfectly. But She's just annoying. I personally hate voice assistants. Like it's just
Sure.
I've never found one that works for me and isn't annoying and doesn't cut in from time to time. And it freaks Alyssa out because it has these fake eyes that look at you and it spins around and it's like you're
Right.
supposed to have a conversation and I don't know. So we just put her off basically.
Okay, you can do that.
Oh yeah, you just turn that off. And that's how we drive Neos. Yes.
And it's cool
Okay.
because it can tell from what direction the voice is coming in, who's speaking to it. So it spins and looks at you. You know, if two people are talking, it goes back and forth.
It's really, I think it's kind of cute. But yeah, there it is on the dash. If you're watching on YouTube or one of the video streams for our visual listeners, it's just like a little baseball sized pod with a screen in it. And it basically has eyes and does these little hand motions and gestures. But yeah. We don't use that too much. What I was more fascinated with were, the integration of the software is awesome. The route planning is now great. Everything is just getting dialed in and it's like, okay, they're getting this thing ready to really rock it in Europe. And I haven't gone through the comments on my YouTube video yet. Again, it just went up only, 30, 40 minutes ago, something like that. But I know that there's going to be a lot of people in the US that will say, bring it here. I want it. And a lot of other people in the US who will say, I will never buy a Chinese car.
Sure.
And there's still a lot of anti-Chinese, building in the US. And therefore, I think it might stifle some of the, the Chinese automakers coming into the US. What do you think, Tom?
Well, first of all, with the tariffs, Kyle, it's nearly impossible to really build a brand here at the moment with the way the tariffs are. And, I'm not going to say we should pull them down because it's nearly impossible for U.S. to import vehicles into U.S. automakers to import vehicles into China. So, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So I just wish there was a way we could work this out to have fair trade, but China doesn't seem to be interested in fair trade. The Chinese government, at least the companies would love it, but Chinese government isn't interested in fair trade. And as long as that's concerned, we've talked about this on the show before. And I think without Kyle, I'm going to almost speak for Kyle here. The Chinese vehicles are getting very good, scary good.
Yeah.
And they're getting better at a pace that is, say, faster than the pace that Japanese cars got good from the early 70s into the 80s. It took them, a full decade before people trusted them and believed in them and before they got good because they were they were toys. And it was funny. The name was Toyota. It was like a toy. And that's what everybody viewed it as in the early 70s. You guys don't remember that, but I remember. And I remember my dad saying, oh, it's a tin can toy, driving down the road. I'd never go in that as he's barreling down the road in his 72 Oldsmobile Delta 88. That was, 22 feet long, and you got this little smart car next to him. He's like, that thing's a death trap. But anyway, we see what happened to Toyota. They built their brand into the strongest automaker in the world in 20 years. So we're going to see that with these Chinese car companies. Their tech and their improvement on the vehicles is accelerating so quickly, guys. By the end of this decade, by the end of the 2020s, the best cars in the world may very well be coming out of China. And that's scary. And it will decimate European and North American automakers because they can do it for cheaper. And it's a huge problem. I don't know how we really deal with this, to be honest with you. I build more walls and not allow vehicles in. I wish there was a way we could have more fair competition.
I think they can build them cheaper for now, but in the future, they have to pay their workers as well, and they have to pay them more and more as the just live the way lifestyles sort of
and they are
become more expensive.
The last time I was in China, from what I was told, whether it's true or not, in like say the Shanghai proper, the areas in the big cities where the advanced, where let's say the engineers are working on vehicles and even in some of the factories, supposedly the wages are the same as the wages for automakers here. It's where you get way out into the country and some of the more rural areas. That's when you see that wage dive down. But in the developed cities where they're working on high tech products, the wages are similar. Now they don't have the albatross of the benefits packages and the retirement accounts and all that stuff that the medical insurance coverage that like doubles the cost of salaries here in the US. But it's a difficult proposition. I'm curious to see how this is going to play out. I don't see how we get into the next decade without having China every year assuming a greater and greater percentage of the overall production of vehicles, in the worldwide production of vehicles. And it's a scary thought, because it's such a huge, important industry. Look, take Germany, for instance. Besides the US, how important is it for the country of Germany to have the auto manufacturing industry the way it is now, with the big three? You know how many jobs, how much money that injects into the economy? If they start losing 2, 3, 4, 5% of that every year, there's going to be problems with the German economy.
Well, they have to compete, and that's what we did in the '80s with the Japanese. The American automakers, got their stuff together a bit more, and put out but a much more improved product and much more fuel efficient product, because that was one of the big issues, right, with the cost of fuel and everything. And
but we have to control the battery supply too. It's not just a matter of improving quality,
right?
And the refining of the materials.
Right.
I know we're a long way from being self-sufficient on being able to get the raw materials and then refine it to be able to be used in batteries. We have to start now. Europe has to, US has to. You can't wait till any longer. It's already too late.
Yeah, I think. Well, that's happening now with the whole. Is it infrastructure, not an infrastructure act, but the recent, the government's pumping a lot of money into electric vehicles, and also the incentives packages are incentivizing mining and processing of other things for batteries. So I think we're going to be okay. I think the Chinese will definitely have a larger presence in the future, but I think we can compete and come back. It's just going to take, it's just, I don't know. It worked out okay in the 80s, 90s, and I think we can compete as well going ahead with the Chinese as well.
I hope so.
And hopefully, take some of their innovation and incorporate into our cars, like we did with the Japanese innovation as well. I don't want to be all doom and gloom about it, but anyway, I think we should probably move back to Germany.
I got you.
No, it's okay. No, this is great. I like this discussion, actually. But we got a lot of German cars and stuff to talk about here. So the IAA is in Munich, and it's really the home show for the German brands. So let's talk about Volkswagen and the GTI Concept. Now, concepts aren't super popular with some people, but Kyle, you got to spend some time with this, and you actually put together a great video detailing the exterior and showing some shots of the interior that were shared with you, and you seem super excited about it. So why are you fired up about a car that's only going to see production maybe in 2027, I think?
Well, okay, so maybe I should explain. I don't like concepts that will never happen.
Right.
This is pretty much series production approved from a design language standpoint. So Volkswagen's like, we're making it, so that's cool. When a big giant automaker that builds cars says we're making it, they're going to make it. They spent a lot of money on, of course, promoting this car, and you should see the stand that they had at IAA. I still think, it's probably a bit too early to cover it, but I was there, the car was there, and I'm like, all right, well, let me at least film it. And, because there's not going to be anything really to talk about for the next few years until we're able to drive it. So I'm like, since I'm here, since we're filming, let's get it on the channel. And of course I complained, it's a concept. I wish it was coming earlier. Why talk about it so much in advance? But from a design standpoint, if this is Volkswagen's new direction, which it is, they are doing some great things. Now, I cared more about the mechanical components more than the design, of course, although I think this looks incredible. But interestingly, this will be built on the MEB. There's sort of a shrunken version of MEB, a basic front-wheel drive platform. It'll have much new, snappier software like we're seeing in ID.7 and ID.4. It will have a limited slip or locking front differential. High 200 horsepower range, maybe even touching 300 horsepower is what it sounds like. And something this small seems great, not worth spending too much time on it, again, because we're years away, but at least we know where Volkswagen's wanting to take this. We know that they are putting a GTI badge on an electric car, which is first time ever. So all good with me. Just wish it wasn't so far away.
Right. So, did they drop any hints about this coming to the US? Because this is based on the ID.2, and we don't even get the ID.3 here because it's a small, hatch, and they don't really sell super well in the US. But this was on the US media site for Volkswagen. So I don't know. What do you think, Tom?
I didn't realize it was on the US media site.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
I mean,
it is.
sometimes it's like,
Okay.
that doesn't necessarily mean it'll come here, but I don't know.
That's could be a hint. I mean, I love the GTIs. I've always loved GTIs. I would love to have something here. I would love to have this brought here, but it just seems like these type of vehicles just don't sell well here. You got a hardcore group of a small group of people that love them,
Right.
but I mean, there's a reason why the manufacturers stopped importing these small hatchbacks. They just don't sell. I love it. I love a hot hatch. I've said that on the show many times. I was a big CRX fan. That was like the hot hatch, the CRX SI back in when GTI used to go up against GTIs all the time. This is something I would love as a daily driver. But
maybe I can add some more color to that because I spoke to the whole Volkswagen USA team about it, including the CEO of Volkswagen USA, Pablo Desi, and asked him, what needs to happen for this to come here. He basically said they're already in talks with the homologation teams, with the design teams, so that this car can come to America. I think the idea is they wanted to gauge a little bit of interest. And basically, they were like, we're looking at the comments on your YouTube video. We're reading the comments on the other articles, looking at how many people are excited, roughly gauging interest on all these things. And it sounds like the at least response when I spoke to them, because I spoke to them a couple days after this video went up, was like, okay, I think they're going to try really hard to get it in America. It's not a guarantee, but I wouldn't be surprised if it makes it to our market.
Right. That was kind of the impression I had too. It sounds like they really want to bring it to the US, but they really need an audience for it, but GTI has a lot of cachet, just that, that trim level, that performance trim. I don't so if they brought this, would they have to bring the ID.2, do you think? No.
I don't think the ID.2 will come. I think just like they did with Golf, we only get the GTI and the R. My impression is we'd only get the GTI of this.
Okay. Well, that kind of makes sense, I guess. Right on. Okay. Okay, well, let's leave GTI, but that's a great video. So if you're more interested in that car, check out Kyle's video because he does a great walk around. He's got shots of the inside the show as well, and it looks pretty decent. So sticking with Volkswagen, they also announced a major upgrade for the ID.4 82 kilowatt hour models, which is kind of interesting. They're sticking just with the 82 kilowatt hour models and not doing this to the smaller battery pack, at least in the US. But they announced a major upgrade for those, and now they've upgraded the motors. So now they have 282 horsepower in the rear-wheel drive and 330 horsepower in all-wheel drive. Is that the AP50 or 550, Kyle, the motor?
Yep, it is. Yep, absolutely.
Okay, so it was AP550s. This is like a big deal with Volkswagen now. They've put in a number of vehicles, and we'll talk about another one here in a second that you drove, but you also drove the ID.4. So I've put the footage of that video up here on the screen while we talk about it just a little bit. So it's not just the motors, though. They've also improved the interior somewhat. It's got a 12.9-inch infotainment display and a new shifter position and a revised steering wheel layout, ventilated front row seats. The S Plus model receives a premium Harman Kardon audio system, 9 speakers, subwoofer, 16-channel amplifier. So pricing is going to be only closer to the on-sale date in early 2024. So this is not too far away either. This updated ID.4. So you got to drive this and make the video. Kyle, what'd you think?
Yeah, ID.4, time for some upgrades. Everyone agrees software is not the best. It's certainly better than when the car launched, but it needed something legit. That's the big story here, is not just a new screen, but an entirely new software stack with new processors that responds as fast as you can hit the screen. I mean, they definitely took the criticism of slow, annoying software to heart and almost made this snappier than anything I've experienced. It's like as fast as you can touch the screen, boom, you're at the next thing. Route planning happened instantly. It's all in the video. Now, Is that going to perform the same on day 400 as it does on day 5? I don't know if it's going to get clogged up, but it seems like a great idea. Glad that they did that. The new motor is really great as well. And, a lot punchier, a lot more efficient, no downsides there, better thermal management. So you can pretty much do anything you want to that. It's called the APP 550, and that's going to go in pretty much every MEB product as the primary motor. The secondary motor is still the Magna induction motor in the all-wheel drive trim, and that only gets a slight increase in power up to about 330 horsepower, and I'm fairly certain it's just battery limited at that point. It just can't output all the power there. So it's a nice upgrade. We'll start in February deliveries in the U.S. is my understanding, and December production, November, December production, something like that. And no one's going to complain about it. It's very nice. And if you're thinking about buying an ID.4, well, maybe you can get a good deal on an existing one. Its software doesn't matter to you, but if you really want a great software experience, wait for this one.
And Kyle, I think Kyle nailed it, Dom. You asked him more about the motor, but the big improvement on the ID.4 is the software. The ID.4 was fine as it was power wise. If you ask me, it was not a barn burner, but it's not meant to be. This is a people mover. If somebody wanted like a crossover type vehicle like this, all electric, and they wanted more sport, I think they're going to choose Mach-E or Kia EV6, something like that. The ID.4 was not designed to be the sport version of the small electric crossovers. It's a people mover. It's to pile the kids in there. It has a ton of space on the inside, load things up. Yeah, it's good to have a little extra punch. I'm not saying I'm not glad they gave it more, but to me, that's secondary here. That they needed to improve the software. That was the Achilles heel on the ID.4 was the software. It was terrible. And if I haven't had a chance to experience like Kyle has, and I trust him with his assessments, if it's improved as much as he says it is, then Volkswagen vastly improved the ID.4. Okay, they gave it a few more horsepower. I don't think most people are going to really care about that. They're going to care about not having to press that damn screen and wait 3 seconds for it to load something, So that's the big key, and I'm glad that they were able to make such an improvement. I'm surprised Kyle he's glowing reviews every time he tries the new the new software on Volkswagen. So that's good to hear.
Yeah, we're watching the video on screen now on YouTube, and it looks really snappy, that screen. That was the big issue then, I guess, right?
Yeah, it was that. It was also just like some functionality just was like buggy and it didn't always work. And, these cars just had a lot of bugs, a lot of weird little things. Like even Michaela's car, Alyssa's sister, has an ID.4 all-wheel drive. It's just got an airbag light on. Dealer can't fix it. So, they're not perfect. Yeah. And so little things like that. We see it from every automaker. But I think we saw it a little bit more from Volkswagen than others, to be honest.
Sure.
Also, I really had a great time. Volkswagen was great. They laid out all the cars. I was able to bam, film all the ones I needed to at this one thing in Munich. It was fantastic from a time to filming thing. And I also got some time, about an hour to sit down with the CEO of Volkswagen North America or USA, Pablo. And I really, spoke to him a lot about North American charging standard and how dreadfully unreliable public charging is at the moment. And how we have seen almost no improvement, actually almost the opposite. And, he's giving me data that Electrify America is telling him that, the chargers are improving. The new ones are great. Guess what? All the new ones in Colorado by my house derate to 40 kilowatts. There's only one that doesn't. And so I'm like, dude, you might have successful sessions, but are they derated? Like, is the data that you're getting from Electrify America good? Because you need to make a decision here that serves your customer base, not your company. And I was like, look, you're at a huge disadvantage if you don't sell this car with a North American charging standard port. You can still use the public networks that way, but then you gain access so people can actually get around hassle-free. It's like, you just have to do it. And, they didn't confirm anything but they realized there's a problem. And, I was like, look, you got to do this. That was all I really said to him. He was like, okay, well, why don't you talk to Electrify America? I'm like, no, trust me. I don't even want to talk to them. Like, it's not even worth it. What matters is when you roll up to a station, does it work and do you get derated sessions? Right. And, that's where we're at.
And just to be clear, Electrify America doesn't want to talk to you either, Kyle.
Yeah, no, it's very true. They do not.
But yeah, and I agree. Volkswagen will switch over to NACS. They're going to do it kicking and screaming. They may be the last ones to do it.
Right.
You know, there's a board of directors. There's a board somewhere sitting on some high throne over in Germany saying, no, nine. Like,
Actually, the German guys were into it. I was talking to them about it. Like the real high ups here. I mean, I was with, CEO of all Volkswagen Group, Oliver Blumer, and then, Schaefer, who's Volkswagen global head, talking about this. They're like, yeah, well, if it makes sense to the consumer, no one said no.
Yeah. Well, it can't be the U.S. team saying, no, we don't want to switch, Kyle. I mean, the reason why this hasn't happened yet, it can't be the people in the U.S. I mean, unless they just have incompetence, rotting through the company, which I don't believe that.
Well, my impression is they receive the data from EA and they don't verify. I sent them an official request for comment on, do you verify the data that you're getting from EA?
Right.
Yeah. We'll see what they say.
Well, and what's the data? Like you said, is EA derating the stations so that they have less interrupted sessions and they can have a higher percentage of successful sessions? Just, I'm just saying that Kyle, you can massage data a million ways to come out with the results that you want. You can cherry pick exactly what is improving. And I'm not saying Electrify America is doing this. I have no knowledge of what they're reporting on. We just know because we're out there. And to me, it seems clear that the network's getting worse than it was 2 years ago. There's less successful charging sessions to me from what I'm seeing, what I'm witnessing, what I'm hearing. And that I don't even know the root cause of that, if it's the hardware or if it's just that there's so many more vehicles charging now, there's a greater chance that they're going to have problems. And if the stations get used time after time after time, are they more likely to then have a broken session or a broken station? Because the utilization is through the roof now compared to 2 or 3 years ago. So I don't know what the root cause is, but I do know I experience and my followers seem to experience more problems now than what they did a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I would agree with the general overall statement that my impression based off of our rate your charge check-ins that I'm seeing is just a dreadful experience this summer. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what is causing it to happen. It doesn't matter what they say they're going to do for fixing it, that they've said for the last 4 years. And it's not just that one network provider, it's others as well. Right. It's just, now is the time. It's like, okay, if you want to sell an electric car, it's got to have a NACS port. You have to use superchargers or we can't recommend it. We're just there.
And the proof in the pudding is these automakers switching over. I don't know if our audience understands how big of a deal this is for the automakers. It wasn't just a matter of just ordering NACS ports and putting them in the car. There's a tremendous amount of engineering and time and money and effort going into redesigning, even just redesigning the size of the charge port. None of these companies wanted to do this. If they wanted to do it, they would have done it a few years ago. They could have negotiated a deal with Tesla back then. It's an enormous cost, an enormous hassle for their engineers to take on. They did it because they decided they had to do it because the charging experience was so bad. Their customers were reporting it. They're like Ford, for instance, charging angels were out there, going around testing all the stations. Everything came back to the company saying, your customers are experiencing terrible public charging experiences. You have to figure out a way of improving this. And the easiest, quickest way to try to improve it was to say, okay, there seems to be a standard out there that works better. Let's incorporate it.
You're bringing up some data about utilities derating. No, they can choose to pay a demand charge. They have a transformer. They're entitled to the electricity. And so that's not the reason they're derating. They're mostly, from what I'm finding, derating due to power module failure, software issues, and cable cooling issues where they lose temperature data sending and they derate to 100 amps or whatever it is. And so there's probably 10 common failure modes that put them into a derated session that, to be honest, a lot of them used to just brick the entire charging session. And now it is going to a derated session. So that's better than a failed session. But then do you really want to be sitting there charging at 37 kilowatts? Not
Right.
me. And, using the supercharger network here in Europe, driving a Volkswagen ID.3, because I can use, over 70% of the superchargers in Europe are open to the public. It's been amazing. It's so great. You can drive any car, whatever you want, and you're going to get a great charging experience. It's just, the way it has to be.
Yeah, I think once everyone can start using Tesla chargers, and Honda is on the NACS, the Tesla standard now. They made an announcement yesterday, the day before. So Honda's not a holdout any longer. I'm not sure who that leaves. Toyota, I can't remember what the list is now, what the score is on who's adopted NACS. But the thing is, they all have to do it because the charging it's just so much better.
The big one will be when the first Volkswagen Group automaker switches, and I think it'll be Porsche.
Okay, I mean they've already talked about they've already said they're trying to do it though, right? I believe that
they really want to do it.
Right.
They're pushing internally in the group harder than any other brand. So
I believe that because my talks with Porsche in the past was a lot about charging. And I think they picked my brain more than, say, the other journalists when we went on press drives or whatever, because it's my wheelhouse. I'm sure they talked to Kyle about it too. And whenever I did like Porsche drives, when you do these drives, there's time to talk to engineers and there's dinners where you talk to the representatives from the companies. And it was always about my charging experience and how do we improve the charging experience. I think Porsche really understood how paramount it is for their customers' charging experience to be well. Because if they weren't going to have a good charging experience, they weren't going to enjoy their Porsche. And more so than the other companies. And so I totally agree with Kyle on that one. I hadn't really thought about that before. But Porsche absolutely seemed more dialed in, being concerned about charging than the other companies did. So I agree with Kyle there. And I don't have any information about them pushing harder than the other Volkswagen brands. Kyle might have more about than I do, but I would believe that because of the fact that they understand that you can't enjoy your EV if you can't charge it easily.
That's right. So let's move on just a little bit. Somebody asked earlier in the conversation if the new ID.4 is going to be made in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and yes, it is. It's going to be made there with the new improved motors and screens. So, Kyle, you also got to drive the ID.7 sedan. So that debuted in April and it just began production last month. I don't know if you have any good driving footage in this. This is mostly you behind the wheel. But what were your thoughts about this? It's like a Model S size vehicle, right?
Yeah. Oh, huge back seat, quiet, comfortable, almost boring, but in a good way. Electric sedan to cover distance. Very efficient, seemingly. They really tuned this car for highway efficiency, which was a cool takeaway. They really targeted 80 miles an hour as we want this car to just do 80, rip the charging sessions and go. And I was like, well, that works great. And, this is going to be I don't know if it ever works out this way, but I feel like this is what most of the Volkswagen executive team is going to be driving. So I feel like, the car's really built to do the long distance. It has to work really well, comfortable, quiet, super comfy suspension, adaptive chassis control, great head-up display as well, great driver assistance. Nothing really here to complain about. I was very impressed with the package overall. I mean, it's great. Certainly, I think in the US, it's going to be a tough sell. We're not a huge sedan market. It is a liftback, but there will also be a wagon version that I'm really looking forward to sharing. And so, yeah, it just was, massaging seats with a whole bunch, way better than ID.4 massaging seats, lots of options. It has a seat drying mode. And Abe in the comments is a friend of mine, hardcore ID.7 lover. And I just think he will love this thing because honestly, they could in certain areas put an Audi badge on this car and totally get away with it. I mean, it's really good.
But Audi has
Really?
something like this too, don't they? Like the A6 or
Yeah, but that's going to be like certainly nicer, maybe materials inside and different driving and motors and stuff. This though is like a way nicer road tripper than any Volkswagen I had driven. And I've driven their like Arteon, which is, great to cover distance and things like that. This is a step above.
So this was a rear-wheel drive with the AP550 motor.
Yep, everything gets the APP 550.
So so I heard there was supposed to be a rumor that the GTX version, so that's the all-wheel drive dual motor version of the ID.7, would be debuting at IAA earlier in the year. That was like the rumor, but I don't think we've seen it there. Did you hear anything about that?
Nope, hadn't heard anything about it.
Okay. Did you find this one had enough like juice, good enough power? Because
fine. It's not meant to be a sporty car.
Right.
So yeah, gets out of it. So this APP 550 has 75% more torque than the outgoing motor. So it's like quite a bit more, but it's not fast. Like if you get in it, it feels very similar to the current all-wheel drive models. So if you get out of a new rear-wheel drive ID.4, it kind of feels like the old all-wheel drive ID.4.
That's perfect.
It's fine. You don't need any more. These are not meant to be race cars. However, I did send you something on WhatsApp. I don't know if we're able to pull it up here, but we are here in Switzerland and I'm doing this podcast now. But actually, Alyssa went to attend the launch of a new world premiere from Volkswagen here, which I don't know why they didn't tie it in with IAA, but they tied it in with the Volkswagen ID drivers meet. And I have no idea anything about it, but she just sent me these photos, and it's an ID.7 with a giant ass wing, technical term, wide body, slammed, great looking center lock wheels, and big brakes. So it's like, what the heck?
What is this?
Yeah.
So I was looking. I was trying to get the.
Don't know anything about it.
Viewers.
There was a world premiere of this car. She went, and I just got the photos, and I basically said WTF. And she hasn't responded. So
she sent you. It looks like it. So it's not the ID.7 Passat. No.
I sent you the rear photo of it. It's an ID.7.
Okay. Oops.
Yeah.
Back up.
Don't call Max if he saw that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just click out of this screen if you can, Dominic, on StreamYard so they don't see everything.
Right. Stop screen.
It's called the ID.X Performance. It's dual motor with 560 horsepower, apparently.
Okay.
Abe has got it all the info. So Alyssa's filming it right now. She's in the car, interviewing all the people about it. I wish I was there, but I'm down the street at our hotel, missing it to do this show.
Oh, okay. So it's just not. So that's kind of what I was asking about just a moment ago. The GTX, but it's not the GTX. They're just calling it something else. The
ID.X Performance. So, but it looks like it's. Again, I'm seeing the photos with you. I don't know anything about it. Maybe if we go to Volkswagen Newsroom, we can learn with you about it.
That's true, right?
I don't see it online yet. So maybe we broke the news. I don't think there's an embargo. So sorry if we broke it. But
I mean, it's out in the open somewhere where we can take pictures. So
yeah, you could easily see this from the public road.
Right.
I don't think there is. I just don't know if there's any info.
Right on. Okay, well, that's something to look forward to. Then it'd be like, yeah, it looks pretty awesome in that photo. Yeah. So let's talk about something else really quick. So while you were there, you also we talked about this car actually a lot last week. The Tesla Model 3 refresh. You got to see that in person, and sit inside and make a video. So what were your impressions, and did you learn anything new?
Yeah, sorry, I was just reading something. So you're asking about the Model 3 refresh?
Yes.
This is the top story of the show. We didn't put it in the title.
I mean, we talked about all like last show.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, that shows you how good my memory is. So
I mean, you've been going a million miles an hour for like the last 7 days, man. You're forgiven.
Hasn't been too bad. Yeah. So Model 3 refresh. It's basically the same underpinnings of the current 3, same battery, same motors is our understanding. There have been some rumors of everything. Actually, guess who's back? Alyssa's back with all the information. Can we go back to ID.X Performance? Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
ID.X what?
ID.X.
And you brought pizza. Yeah. Can you come and tell everyone about it since you were just at the unveil?
No clue.
Oh, yeah. Here, come explain.
Yeah. So
Hi,
it
Alyssa.
looks cool. Hi. It's a concept.
Is it based on the ID.7?
ID.3.
No, it's not based on the ID.3. It's a 4-door sedan.
Huh?
Yeah, we just saw you sent me the photos of it. It's an ID.7.
Do we have do they have a photo of the back? Kyle?
Okay, maybe we didn't get all the best information.
No, I have no clue what happened.
What do you mean? You were there.
That's the back.
Yeah, no, it's ID.7.
Yeah. It's ID.X.
ID.X. Okay.
And it has a bunch of Audi GT.
Audi e-tron GT stuff.
Yeah, it's on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And horsepower 558.
I am. The guy tells everything. I didn't quite remember.
Okay, but you did an interview.
I did an interview, yeah.
Okay, but since you think it's an ID.3, maybe it's not the best interview.
No, I didn't. No, because the guy just talked, and I didn't really say anything, so it was great.
Okay, thanks for doing that.
That's it.
Okay, but it won't enter production.
No, barely any of it.
Oh, okay, so it's not even worth talking about.
So I'm thinking this is like a concept version of the GTX. I'm thinking of the eventual production consumer model of the GTX.
Don't know anything. You know as much as we do. So there we go.
Right.
Sorry for that.
No, it's okay. Yeah, I would say that's probably what's going on there.
Okay. So yeah, Model 3 refresh, big news, best car in the world, just got better. There's no better car than this. When you factor
I know you make that point at the end of you make that argument at the end of this video, right? Yeah, this for the money, for the value, the Tesla Model 3 is kind of like the thing where if a sedan fits in your life.
Yeah, sure. Like if the shape, like everyone's going to need something, but if you just need a car,
right?
And you get so much car for the money here, and you get unbelievably nice interior and ventilated seats and all these great things, and now new blind spot monitoring, which sounds great. There's nothing that comes close. I'm not a huge look. I own 2 Teslas. I'm generally enthused with what Tesla does. I wouldn't consider myself a Tesla fanboy, and I certainly don't get involved with anything Elon or Tesla stock related. You cannot beat this car right now. It's incredible. It's amazingly efficient. It's amazingly well priced. It has the best charging network. It looks awesome. Subjective, my opinion. The body structure was put together really well. Again, they probably dialed in the car for the auto show, for all I know. Of course, they're at a German auto show. You should see the number of people running around with rulers and benchmarking things. And they're going from booth to booth, measuring every car. It's hilarious. And so, this is what you get in Germany, of course. All the other car companies are benchmarking each other. But this thing rocks. It's got a new steering wheel that felt great. It didn't look good in photos, felt great. Still needs stalks. Big miss on the stalks. That is a major oversight. It needs turn signals. It needs park reverse neutral drive. When the car launches in the US, let's hope they get it. Some people say they're not so sure it's the best car ever.
Right.
You can say you have your best car ever. I mean, I am lucky where I'm able to drive pretty much everything. I'm in and out of everything. I listen to our viewers every day. And, it's great. Yeah, there's some issues. The blinkers in a roundabout. Yeah, every car has some problems, but that's a much smaller problem, finding the little blinker here, which, again, I'm going to think there's an aftermarket solution. We've already had companies comment on our video to put the stocks on there. Totally agree. That's a major oversight. It's much better that you can charge it, drive it, have the best app than it is being stuck on the side of the road because your charging station didn't work. Over exaggeration. In a more expensive car that doesn't perform as well. Again, I hate people who say things like this because I know how I sound, but it is amazing.
Sure. And I'm guilty too of owning a Tesla Model 3 at the moment. So, but and it's not like the best car in the world necessarily, but for the money, it's like an incredible value, I think. I don't know. And
well, you have to factor value. Yeah, best car in the world, Rimac, Navara, something crazy, right?
Right.
But when you factor in, okay, this thing is 39 grand in the US, 38 grand in the US when it goes on sale. It's only $1,000 more in Europe than it was on the previous generation. So we're going to expect to see a small bump in price when it comes to the US, but it's got an unbelievably comfortable back seat with a screen in the back. You can, pull up YouTube if you want. It's got double pane, noise isolation everywhere in the car now. I have not driven it, but other reviewers have and said it's much quieter than the outgoing model. And it's all good.
Yeah, sound installation sound and noise was one of the big things that were worked on this version of the car. So Tom, what do you think of this? Well, you've been quiet over there. I need to hear from you.
Well, I'm not over in Germany at IAA. I was with Kyle. I've gone there many years. I just this year I had too much going on, but living vicariously through Kyle's videos. I like the improvements I made. Again, we talked about this last week. The big miss to me is still the stalks. That's a big miss for me. That would give me cause me pause to even getting the vehicle, even though I think it's such an improved. I love the way it looks better. I like the front end. Some people I've seen in the comments said they like the rear changes. They don't like the front. I do like the front. Think it looks chiseled. I think it looks more masculine up front, like more aggressive. I like what they've done inside and outside. I pretty much like everything except the fact that they eliminated the stalks. I really don't like that. The times that I've driven the Model S without the stalks, it really bothered me. And I know I would get used to it, but I don't want to get used to it. I don't dislike using stalks. So that's a big miss.
Yeah, I agree. I have the no stock thing on my Model S, and it drives me nuts. It's just not a nice action to have to look for something on a wheel and it moves. So like when you're like turning, they're now reversed. One's on the top, one's on the bottom. I think everyone can pretty much agree the no stocks thing, bad idea. We really need physical stocks. Thankfully, already seeing aftermarket options, but Tesla just needs to offer it included with the car and move on from this. This is a bad direction.
And just a minor detail about those, like the back seat. So you're watching you in the back seat of the Model 3 right now, and on the back of the front seats is a little storage pocket thing. Those are terrible. I'd rather just not have them there. Just have more leg room. You know, they seem. I don't know what you would put in their magazines.
No, I keep my laptop in there a lot in cars. Yeah. And so it would fit in here easily. So it's just like small things will go out the side, but you can put folders, files, normal things you would put in a seat back pocket will still fit here.
Okay. Kyle, the seats all ventilated? I see they're perforated.
Just the front two.
Okay.
Yeah, they're all perforated, but only the front ones get the ventilation. Yeah. All right. Well, that was cool. That was a popular video. That was you did really well with that one. So let's bring up another Model 3 competitor. So we don't have we don't have to spend a lot of time on this because concepts necessarily, but there is a lot of interesting info to go with the Mercedes-Benz Concept CLA. Let's see if I'm sharing this yet. I am not. So it's about Tesla Model 3 sized with the Mercedes star shape for headlights and taillights, and it's all around the car. Actually, it's like a star machine. Let me just make that like that. And we're looking at in this background, this is a little clip from Mercedes showing it off. So I mostly like the shape, and that's the part I guess that's going to make it into production because it's super streamlined. And Mercedes mentions that it benefits from the Vision EQXX concept car, which I believe you saw, and we're seeing a few shots of the interior. The interior is like all concept, like it's not even worth looking at because it's just whatever clear plastics and future stuff that's never going to happen. But the outside, I think this is the exterior is actually relatively close to a production vehicle. So this car is going to be the first to sit on the MMA platform. Forget what's something modular architecture. So that has an 800-volt architecture and it's said to be super efficient. So we don't know the battery size yet, but apparently it will have 2 advanced cell chemistries, including a silicon oxide-based anode. And I imagine the cathode is the other thing that's going to be changed. And they're looking at a W to LTP range of 466 miles. So we don't know what the battery size is, how they're going to achieve all those miles. That's probably closer to 380 or so on the EPA, which a bunch of miles, which is a great range.
We could figure it out though, because they gave a consumption rate, an insane consumption rate of 12 kilowatt hour per 100 kilometers. That's over 5 miles per kilowatt hour.
That's
nuts.
That's 192 watt hours per mile.
Yeah, that's nuts.
It's the other way.
I mean, that's like what a Model 3 LFP does in normal driving.
Yeah.
Yeah, under 200. My dad's always getting right around 200 watt hour per mile, even under in mixed and urban driving. It's magically efficient. Yeah.
Okay, so it's going to be. So I think it's going to be at least as efficient as that. Maybe I don't know. I kind of feel like it's edging it out here, but maybe it's not.
Yeah, I mean, Mercedes has proven that their stuff is magically efficient. Remember, we did that EQS SUV range test that just wouldn't stop going. EQS sedan, same thing. EQE, also magically efficient. These cars are engineered so well. Why you need to put 5,000 Mercedes-Benz logos all over your car, I don't know. This is dumb. Bad direction, needs to go back old school. And I'm not a design guy, so just, again, Kyle opinion. That's stupid.
Okay.
This whole car is not about the design. It's all about the debut of the new architecture. This 800-volt architecture for the base car that will support fairly good charging performance, as well as a 2-speed transmission on the rear axle, which I can already tell you I'm not loving the idea of that. I don't like things that require multiple shifting in an EV. Other automakers have proven you don't need it. So why are you complicating it?
I don't get it.
This? Yeah. So it's not about the design. It's not about the look. That's how they get the headlines. It's how they have something to present to the show. But really, the details in the platform are amazing and very fascinating. So I did a whole podcast on the Out of Spec podcast channel about this car where we really nerded out. Didn't really talk about the design. It's all the new platform changes and the fact that the entry-level car is now 800 volt, which leaves the upper cars, which are built on the what is the name of the platform that the other cars are built on?
I want to say CLA or CMA right off the top of my head, but I don't think that's it.
I can't remember. But whatever the EQS is built on, EVA 2, excuse me, the EVA 2 platform is 400 volt. So those cars are going to need to get a refresh to stay ahead of their base little one.
Yeah, it's kind of nuts. So this is the first of 4 vehicles coming on this platform. We're told to expect a shooting brake, so that's probably a wagon version of this car. With this car won't have those Mercedes lights, which I kind of like actually. I think it's a little cocky, it's a little bold kind of thing. But
it's always the cheaper the Mercedes, the more logos they put on it. Not a good direction.
Right. So shooting brake and also 2 other SUVs. Let me turn that off. So also at the show, they were talking about. I've heard a little bit of people talking about the what do you call it, the G-Wagon, the EQG, the electric one. Have you heard anything about that? It's coming soon, right?
I think we're going to start seeing the media, cover this car here very, very soon. Everything I can tell is this car is pretty much ready to rock and roll.
Okay, but separate. So they teased. So this week they didn't show the EQG, but they teased a little G. They're saying a smaller version of the G class that they're going to make in electric. So it'll be like traditional looking G class, but shrunk down. So it's going. I think they teased it as a little G. So I think the old one is going to be heretofore known as the OG, and then. Okay, that was my joke. All right, so moving along and sticking with the IAA, BMW presented its Vision Neue Klasse concept car, and this is an evolution of a series of Vision concepts. I guess I should try to see if I can bring up a video of that to share with you all. They don't have a great video of it, but there's something here we can show you. And pull that up, and there you go. Turn that on, and so we're looking at it sounds like they call it Neue Klasse. I don't speak German, as I said earlier.
Neue Klasse.
Neue. Okay. Neue Klasse. So this is so they've been putting out BMW like a series of like vision of concepts with the word vision, and this is I think it might be the 3rd one. I'm not sure. So they say with this latest.
3.
Yeah, they had that weird looking hatchback kind of thing. That was kind of awkward looking.
The i8 was the Vision Dynamics back, way back when.
Right? That was a good car. Man, I like that. So they say with this latest design concept, the BMW Vision Neue Klasse, the BMW Group is showcasing what the next generation of vehicles from its core BMW brand will look like. Supposedly, this foreshadows vehicles that we'll start to see in 2025, which is actually pretty soon. So I kind of wish they showed us something with more production intent. They do say, though, that this will have 30% more range, 30% faster charging, and 25% better efficiency. And we also know that they're going to use cylindrical cells instead of the prismatics that BMW has typically used in its packs. So I'm not sure. You have any thoughts about this, Tom?
Not really. I mean, it's not showing off that vehicle. It's kind of like the Mercedes release was to talk about the new architecture. And that's really what this is more than the vehicle. I mean, that vehicle is not going to get made. It's just look at our new beginnings, and here's some design language that we're going to follow, and this is what the future looks like. I think that's really basically what Mercedes did with that CLA concept. So it's good to see that they're coming out with the next generation that's going to be longer range, faster charging, more efficient, all that stuff. We expect that. So I think we can move on. Concepts are concepts.
Yeah, I agree.
Think maybe before we move on, though, I just want to, it's still like this, the rumblings of the Neue Klasse around some friends who are in the automotive business here in Germany have been like, this is the big deal. Like this is the make or break for BMW's potential future, whether or not they can, survive or not, because this is the underpinnings of all future models, all future major models from them. So it has to be class leading. It has to be a BMW and what the brand stands for, which means they really need to make sure this thing works. And the importance is through the roof. And the engineering dollars are through the roof. Again, like Tom said, who cares what the thing looks like? The concept car, throw that in the garbage. Doesn't matter. It's but the importance of the Neue Klasse is huge. I think they really botched it from a marketing and communications standpoint in terms of conveying this message. Really not great at all. No one understands the car. Even talking about random people at the show, they're like, "Oh, that's kind of ugly," whatever. But what this stands for the company is huge, and let's hope they got it right.
Well, they still have a little bit of time. But I mean, this is coming out in 2025. It's so
they have
soon.
no time. It has to be done because it goes into production very soon.
What's the next big show? Probably around January area. The next big car
I don't think
shows.
we'll see anything major then, but I think internally it takes 6, 7, 8 years to develop a platform like this, especially for a big, slow-moving German company like BMW. The Chinese can do it at Chinese speed. Tesla can do it at Tesla speed. BMW, people leave the office at 4:49. They want to be home by 5:01. You know what I mean?
Well,
so
this is part of the conversation of Volkswagen right now. They're talking about changing their development speed from 5 years to 3 years, basically, more to match the Chinese. So like we were talking about earlier.
I don't see how they're able to do it. The more time, and I think Alyssa and I were actually talking about this, the more time we spend in Germany talking to people at these companies and really immersing ourselves in the automotive culture here, the less confident we are about its future success.
Yeah,
it's true.
I mean, it'll be interesting. I wouldn't be too, especially for some of the companies like Mercedes. I feel really has a good grasp on the electrification.
Really, because their electric cars look way worse than their combustion cars. They have to seriously incentivize the hell out of them to sell them, and they're not desirable. So what makes you think Mercedes got that figured out?
I mean, I'm looking at their efficiency of the platforms that are coming. I don't know.
But efficiency isn't sexy.
And they're all in on it too. They're all electric by 2030, right? So I don't know. It's kind of make or break. I guess it's like that for all of them.
It's true. It is make or break. I'm not sure they've cracked the code personally, but we'll have to see.
But they also, go ahead. No, I was going to say this wasn't something that they started planning last year. No. BMW announced this roadmap in 2015, I think it was, at the 2015 LA Auto Show, and I was there, and they talked about using the flexible architecture for the next couple of years to make hybrids, electric vehicles, everything on the same platform. Then they were going to come out with the i4 and the iX in 2021 or 2020, I think at first, but then COVID might have pushed that back. But the plan all along was to, by 2025, that's the pivot point for the brand, where they're going to start now introducing more electric vehicles than combustion vehicles. So they didn't have to do this in the last 3 years. They've been working on this for at least a decade. Well, they will have been working on it for a decade by the time 2025 comes. So, let's see. It is make or break for a lot of these brands. And we've talked about this before. Every company quietly knew that the whole industry is going to transition to electric vehicles, even though they don't always admit that, because they want to talk about what they're selling today. They don't want to say, oh yeah, we're going to be all electric in 10 years. Buy our car now. It'll be worthless in 7 years, but buy it now. So they don't say that. But within every company, and I know this intimately because it's one of the things I focused on and used to always ask questions about years ago at all the auto shows and all the drives, there is internal struggles, but parts of the company believed it was going to happen, when in the 2020s. Parts of the company didn't think it was going to happen until deep into the 2030s. So there was constantly this fight on when do we go all in. And BMW shifted at one point back 10, no, not quite 10, about 10 years ago. Now, when they had the BMW I started and they were going with, you were going to get an i5 and an i7 and everything way before we did, but the two factions in the company that were, say, at odds, the combustion faction won, and they said, okay, we're going to kick electrification down the road for another full vehicle life cycle, which is 5 to 7 years, and that's what we're experiencing now. Otherwise, they would have been all in around 2020-ish. That was their original roadmap.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, things have been kind of in turmoil, like you're saying, over at BMW.
I'm not saying that was a bad decision. I'm not saying, as big as an EV aficionado and lover as I am, I don't know if BMW right now, 70% of their market portfolio was EVs, they wouldn't be selling as many vehicles as they are, with combustion. That you can't outpace acceptance. There's still a tremendous portion of the population that aren't ready for electric vehicles, that don't want electric vehicles.
And that's probably the majority right now.
Yes. Oh, definitely, Kyle. Not probably, 100%. Where that is, I don't know. But, I would say for certain, less than 50% of the population wants an EV. I think they're going to come around when they see the benefits of it and the performance and so forth. But it's going to take, the better part of this next decade for most people to understand that, in my opinion, for most uses, not all uses, for most uses, it's a better technology.
Yeah. It's still, like you say, the acceptance curve is not going so well. And the press is like kind of nuts right now, man. Like this past week, it's like it's not just like any fringe publications. It's like New York Times, Washington Post, Wall Street Journal. Then a lot of tech sites. There's like a lot of like not great articles about electric vehicles right now, like focusing on things that aren't that important, or
it's all noise. It's going to get worse.
Man,
that's what I think.
It's just frustrating from somebody who's like kind of looking forward to this sort of thing happening, and I'm already a little disappointed at it. I'm naively optimistic sometimes, especially when I was younger, and I kind of expected we'd be where we're at now, like 4 years ago, but so now I'm learning to just be patient and just it's going to unfold at the pace it's going to unfold at. But just seeing all the stuff in the news recently, it's just kind of frustrating for me.
Yeah, well, get used to it. I think it's going to get a lot worse. I think it's going to be bitter. I think it's going to be polarizing. I think this is an enormous shift, right. and it's going to cause a lot of people to lose jobs. There's going to be a lot of new jobs too, right. but overall there's going to be a net loss of jobs. And when that happens, there's a lot of competing forces here, Dom, that have a stake in this. And they're going to have their lobbying people out, and everybody has connections in all the publications, and agendas are going to get pushed. But
right.
Once the dust settles, we are going to have transition to an electric powertrain for our transportation sector.
I don't know. It's pretty much inevitable. I guess, I can't even say the word, but it is, right? At this point, at least, because it wasn't that long ago. It was still up in the air, 2015, 2014. It was like, maybe, I don't know. But anyway, let's talk about an actual car. So we already saw a camouflage version of this at Goodwood. And let me just pull this up on the screen for you. And boom. But now we can see what it actually looks like. Ford has fully revealed the Mustang Mach-E Rally in all its soft-roading glory. So powertrain is like the Mach-E GT, I guess, with 480 horsepower, 650 pound-feet of torque. It comes with specialty tuned springs and Magna-Ride shocks. The suspension is raised up 20 millimeters, not a whole lot. It's like 0.79 of an inch. Brembo brakes, stop 19-inch wheels. It's got the tires have more sidewalls, so a little more give and a bit better grip for the loose surfaces. It's got protective shielding underneath the car for the front and rear motors. It's got protective film on the door cladding and the fender arches to reduce paint chips. It's got 2 racing stripes. I mean, this got it all. Racing stripes, man.
How about that Focus RS spoiler?
Right on the back. It's kind of, they mentioned that the spoiler on the back takes its inspiration from the Focus RS, and it's got 2 fog lights in the front fascia area in the grill, faux grill. I don't know. Do you like this car, or Tom?
So, I mean, it looks cool. Is it all show and not much more go? I don't know. We need to drive this thing. Does it have better, thermals? Can it sustain driving more? Kyle's shaking no. I think they would have said that if it did. So, I don't know. It's cool. I like different variations of cars. Is this a true, rally sport vehicle that you're going to take, on long off-road rallies? Probably not. But does it look cool? Is it going to be appealing to people? Does it have a certain use case? Yeah. So I'm certainly not against it. I think it looks cool.
Yeah. Should be interesting to see. But any word, Kyle, if they've where they're at with the thermal situation?
Yeah. Well, first of all,
there's some news.
My thoughts on the car, I'm thrilled with it. I think it looks incredible. The wheels, the very OZ racing inspired wheels, looks awesome. The suspension height looks good. I really like the little spoiler. Love the lights in the grill. Like styling wise, epic. No real changes to the drivetrain. I have this rally sport mode has got to be some new tuning. So I don't know if that derates the power, so you have more thermal longevity, like this unbridled extend mode is supposed to do, which is lame. Or if it's like, let's go full send, but none of that material looked like it was actually sliding anywhere. And so, but yeah, the color is great. As Liv is saying, our friends from Mach-E Vlog, subscribe to them if you want all the latest Mach-E news. Loving it. Even if it's not any spicier, like the people who are going to buy this thing are going to be thrilled with it. And it's going to be, very popular in Colorado. Looks the part. It's probably going to drive just fine, but it's probably not going to be as spicy as we are hoping.
Right. I think it's an attractive package that should bring people to the brand, or to the car, at least, to the trim. I think it's just going to pull people in just on appearance. And let's
see what the price is also, Dom. That's,
true.
We don't have the cost. Like if it's, more than a GT Performance, like, I don't know.
Right.
I guess it depends what your use case is going to be for it.
Right. GT Performance is pretty expensive, right? And it's probably going to be right up there, like with that. Actually,
I would imagine
it's got the same Magna powertrain, same suspension, or same Magna Ride component of the suspension, at least. So yeah, Richard Flintas asked if it can wade through 3 feet of water. What?
I don't think 3 feet
think that's
is
going to happen
for that, but I think Rivian can do 3 feet. But so Mach-E Vlad said probably right around 65 grand for this one.
Okay, right, and I guess they would probably know. So that's a lot. That still makes it eligible for
tax credit? Yep, but also very very similar with the GT Performance model.
Right.
So you go. Do you want street performance or you want dirt road performance?
Right.
I would do the rally. That's my suggestion. That's cool.
I mean, if I lived somewhere where there's like a lot of back dirt roads, I can see the rally one being kind of like fun to blast around with. Like if I still lived in New Brunswick, they would have a lot of back roads there, and you can still find some dirt roads, and that would be just like a blast.
And that's why I'm glad they offer it, because you could pick your poison. What do you want? It's sure. I love having specialty vehicles like this, different, like one vehicle Mach-E that has 4 different versions. I know that sometimes it's hard for the manufacturers because it really elevates the cost of the vehicle doing these spicy or these different variants. But I love having that choice to choose what you want. So in that regard, I'm super happy they did it in any regard. But I just wish that they would. Mustang, I mean, its fatal flaw is the thermals. They have to improve that. It's a Mustang. It's it has to be able to sustain high performance longer than what it currently does. And Ford knows that. They're working on it, but they've got to improve that.
Right. All right. So let's move on to something else real quick. Hey, Tom, actually, you put out a video this week, and we don't need to spend a lot of time on this, but I just wanted to mention it too, that you put out a video this week about how to charge the Cadillac Lyriq, everything you need to know. So you've done a series of these videos of like everything you need to know about charging this or that vehicle, and they're great, especially for people who are new to electric vehicles. And I don't know if you want to give us a little pitch on this one.
Sure. So you hit the nail on the head for people that are new for electric vehicles. Many of our followers might find a lot of the content in this repetitive, and it's very low level. I explain what level 1 means, what level 2 means, what DC fast charging means. When I do these, everything you need to know about charging the X, it's for the person that it's their first EV. And they really don't understand connectors. See, I have all the connectors laying out, explain what each connector is. I explain adapters. I talked about how GM's transitioning to the North American charging standard and how, if you get your Lyriq now, you don't have to worry about that. There'll be adapters. You'll be able to charge on everything. So I do a very slow, thorough explanation for people that are new, because in my thought process, I believe most people getting EVs now, it's their first EV. Yes, there's a lot of us out there that have multiple EVs, but the majority of everybody, it's their first. And this is intimidating. Look at that. Like, what the hell is that I'm holding, to somebody who's never owned an EV. Sure. And, so I really try to explain how it works, right there, I'm talking about how the CCS connector has an integrated J1772 with DC fast charge pins on the bottom. I try to demystify electric vehicle charging. And yes, I go slow and sometimes I repeat myself, but the best thing about it is, and I get people remind me that in the comment, Tom, at 17, you said the same thing at 4, but then there's a whole slew of comments of people saying, this was absolutely the best thing that ever happened to me, because now I'm going to get an EV, because I needed somebody to go really slow to explain what 120 volts is compared to 240 volts and what different outlets are and all that stuff. So that's what I do with this series. I talk slowly, I repeat myself, and I give somebody a baseline of knowledge about how to charge EVs. You could almost take this video and use it for another EV. But then what I do is after that baseline knowledge, I talk about specifics about like how to set the charge settings in a Lyriq and how to, delayed charging and how to use, how the adapter for the NACS works, so, there's a lot of our followers, as I said, might find this being boring, but I make this for the people that are new. These videos actually don't get a lot of traction. I might get 10 or 15,000 views on them, which isn't great in YouTube terms, but I know I'm helping people with this. I could tell from the comments. So that's why I'll keep making them.
Right on.
Also, Tom, did you see GM issued a software update? What's up with that? I only saw Nebula tagged us in a tweet, but that's all I know. What's the story?
I don't know. I just know that they're offered a software update to improve the charging characteristics of the Lyriq. And right as I'm about to publish my Lyriq DC fast charge deep dive video, where I've charged the Lyriq now like 6 times, and I've charged it at different charging stations, EVgo, EA, from 10 to 80, from 20 to 80, from 0 to 100, like crazy. And I have all these charts and graphs. I'm going to put it out with a disclaimer that says, this might be old information, but this is what I observed. So I already put too much work into it not to put this video out. And I hope for my sake, the charging curve hasn't improved that much, but I hope for all the Lyriq owners' sakes that they made it a lot better, because I can tell you, Kyle, I don't know what happened that time you charged. And I think that it was because you plugged in at a higher state of charge, because every time I plug in, way down 0, 10, 20%. I get kind of a repeat of what happens on all the different charging stations, and it's not good. Basically, it takes about 50 minutes to charge from 10 to 80%. And that's horrible.
Right. And then when I started at 35%, I forget what it was. It was like, okay, just make it all like this, because it was just
I think it makes a big difference. I think the length of time is what kills you. Once you've been charging a certain amount of time, it dies.
Yeah,
and
it could be calculated like Coulomb counting, where they could do some sort of, you've added this much energy in this much time period, therefore we'll just automatically derate. That's what Ford does, by the way. So that's how they do a lot of their derating profiles, specifically for power output. So we don't know what GM's doing here, but we do know it's not good, and maybe they have fixed it, but we need to test it. So GM, get these things in the review fleet so we can get them, so Tom doesn't have to spend $500 every time he borrows it from a Turo guy.
I know. Well, my contact now that was doing renting it to me has moved down to I think Maryland. So I can't rent it here anymore, but that's okay, because I did as much charging video and recordings as I want to do with a Lyriq. I'm done with a Lyriq for a little while. Dom, I'm actually going to, if you can grab this picture just to put it up really quickly, I'll give the followers a advanced look at my 2 on EVgo, 2 on Electrify America, from 10 to 20, from 0 to 100% on both networks, and then from 20 to 80 on EA and 10 to 80 on EVgo. This is the charging graphs, if you want to look at them and compare them really quickly, just to give people a little taste of what I experienced. And you could see it's kind of repeatable. It just depends on at what state of charge you're plugged in. And that's what those are the 4 charging sessions that I did. And really just depends on where you plug in. You get this nice little boost in the beginning, then it just drops down to nowhere, drops down to like, 20 kilowatts, even less, and then bounces back up for a short period, then settles back down to, I think it was around 89 or 90 kilowatt, and then holds that to around 80% every time. So, and I charged it more times than I put on this graph, because there were other times I charged it where I started at like 22% or 16% just to see if I was getting the same result. And I got the same result every time.
Wow. That's kind of disappointing, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and we all know the car, of course, controls
go back
the
to that
session.
Oh, sorry.
Go back to that really quick to support what Kyle's theory could be. Was, if you notice, when I plugged in at the highest state of charge, that's when it held the right. You see the gray line? That's when it held the higher. That was my 20% plug-in.
Oh.
And you notice it held the high charge rate longest there.
Yeah.
Longer than all of the other ones, maybe. And Kyle plugged in at 30%, even higher. So that's why, he was able to sustain that higher charging level even longer, because it might be exactly what Kyle was saying they could be doing with the charging curve. See how that 20%, look how long it holds a high charge rate compared to both on EVgo and EA. Look, when I plugged in at 0.
Yes.
But by the time I'm at 15% state of charge, it's already dropping down to nowhere.
Why is it like that? That makes no sense.
A lot of times you might do this type of tuning out of precaution. Right. If you don't have temperature sensors everywhere, especially in the cabling, and you just know if you add a certain amount of power or a certain amount of current over a certain period of time, that your expected temperature will be X, and therefore that's your maximum limitation. So when I charged the car or when I saw Tom's graphs the first time, I'm like, sometimes we charge prototype electric vehicles. I'm like, I kind of see this like overprotective charging nature, kicking in before it gets dialed in for the series production models. It just felt like very prototype-y software. We thought the same thing when we charged the Hummer. And it just shows that GM really has to get their what together with consistency of charging performance across all of the cars, and needs to be repeatable.
Yeah, I think
go ahead.
You want to know
how your vehicle is going to charge. It's important. You don't want to be wondering, okay, well, if I plug it in at 10% higher state of charge, it's going to hold the charge rate longer and I can, be a shorter, like, you don't have to figure that stuff out. You want to kind of have a repeatable curve almost anytime you plug in. And I know I've said it before, but I get that with the Lightning. You get that initial boost for 8 minutes or 9 minutes, and then it falls into its regular charging curve, a straight line right across. I love having that knowledge of knowing I can do in my head really quickly how long I have to stay if I need to stop on the road. With this, how are you going to figure that out? And I wish I could have overlaid. I wish Kyle recorded his, because I would have loved to have overlaid his 30 to 80, because I'm sure it would have shown an even longer initial high charge rate before it tapered down.
Right. Yeah, I think GM is, their approach to EVs has been super conservative, especially after like the battery fires and the Bolt. I think that really just made them even more, safety conscious, which is great. But it's also led to like this, and then also their vehicles are kind of heavy. I got to say, I don't know if it's like the battery packaging or a safer cell chemistry that's not cutting edge anymore, but they know it's safe. There's something about their batteries; they're a lot heavier than everybody else's. And it's making their vehicles heavier, which makes it harder to have great driving dynamics, right? Because you're carrying so much weight around. Anyway, it's a circular, whatchamacallit.
So real quick, Dom, let me answer Don's question.
Sure.
Do you think 80 amp will be the new standard for home charging? I think a lot of vehicles will have it available as an option, but I don't necessarily believe that most people will charge at 80 amps at home. I think the vehicles that have, say, 100 kilowatt hour battery and bigger will offer that as an option, but that most people, I think, are not going to install 80 amp charging. I think they're going to stick at 48 amps personally. And I think for almost everyone, that's fine. You're going to be recharged in the morning. Even if you drove your vehicle nearly down to zero, you're going to be fully charged unless you have a 220 kilowatt hour battery pack. For GM's 200 kilowatt hour battery packs, I think you kind of need that. but that's 200 kilowatt battery packs is not going to be the norm, guys, moving forward. So I think most people are going to live just fine with 48 amps. If you want to, almost everyone needs a service upgrade for an 80 amp charge, because you need 100 amps just for your for that circuit. For Christ's sake, I just bought a house. It has 100 amp main. The whole house is 100 amps. So, which I'm going to be doing a video on, doing the service upgrade on that soon. But no, Don, I don't think 80 amps is going to be what everybody charges. I think it's going to be offered, but I don't think everybody's going to be charging on that.
Right on. All right, so pretty much down to the end of it here. There's a few cars we didn't mention because they're not coming to the U.S. necessarily, and they're smaller, and maybe it's not a full reveal. Like the Smart number 3 SUV made an official debut that we saw that earlier, but they've just put out some
that'll
specs.
be on a YouTube channel near you soon, by the way.
Oh, really? Oh, that'd
The
be
Smart
nice.
hashtag. No, but just Smart hashtag 1 and 3. We have stuff coming, and also on both the new mini electric models, the Countryman and the hardtop.
Sweet. We talked about the minis last week, but we could just have like in car and on hands-on.
So many things that never made it to the communication that we found. So there's a lot to explore with those.
Sweet. And and I don't moderate the Inside EVs forum anymore, but I do still spend some time over there, and there's a great mini community there, and they will appreciate getting that info for sure. And I'm kind of curious about this Smart number 3. It's 422 horsepower. 200. The range isn't great. 283 miles of WLTP range. So kind of interesting just to see the direction of Smart. I kind of like the original concept of it, so it'd be interesting to see what your opinion of its new direction, because you own a Smart.
Yeah, well, we cover all that in the video, but the 1 and the 3 are pretty much the same car. It's just, do you want a sloping roof or an SUV looking one?
Gotcha. What else? There's also the Renault Scenic E-Tech Electric. That's a European spec model. So I didn't really dig into that one, so I don't have anything. There's also the Zeekr 001 FR. So I don't know if we've talked about Zeekr before in the past. It's a Chinese company. It's in Europe now, and this thing, it's neat to show. It's just a picture of it. But this thing is going to be freaking spicy, man. Quad silicon carbide e-motors, 1265 horsepower. You know, your 2.07 second 0 to 60 in a rolling start. In their a little cocky too. In their PR press release, they're like in brackets after putting their numbers out. Sorry to other performance brands, but I don't know. We'll have to see if it can keep up with the Plaid or some other high performing vehicles. But it's kind of neat to see this kind of thing coming from the Chinese. I think that's the first like super high. What was it?
Well, Electra.
It's true, but that's like a German or an English British brand, so.
Yeah, but it's all Chinese stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll see.
All right.
Cool.
All right.
Sounds great. Bring it on. This
Yeah.
looks awesome. 4-motor. That'll be interesting.
Oh, I know what I wanted to show you also this week, and this is like unrelated to everything that we've been talking about so far, but coming up soon, the Tesla Cybertruck is going to be released, and they've already sent out invitations to the they haven't given us the date yet. We don't know when it's going to be. You could use your Tesla if you had points saved up. You could get invitations, but that's gone away now. It's sold out. But we don't know when it's going to be. But this picture of the frunk of the Cybertruck came online the other day, and it's on Inside EVs, I guess. And man, I got to say, this frunk is kind of underwhelming. I don't know. What are you laughing there, Tom? What are you thinking?
Yeah, it is kind of pathetic in my opinion, coming from Mr. Mega Power Frunk over here that I use all the time.
Okay.
Just yesterday, I had it loaded up. I mentioned earlier, I just bought a house that I'm renovating. I'm doing a lot of the work myself. So the Lightning is getting a workout. I mean, with lumber and insulation and everything. And yesterday I had the frunk packed so much it like wouldn't close. It kept reopening because it was hitting, and I was like pushing on it to close it. I probably broke it, but I absolutely love the enormous power frunk of the Lightning. But you know what? The Lightning is a work truck. The Cybertruck's not a work truck. I mean, you can put gear and stuff up there. I suppose it's not bad, but I tell you, I love the frunk on my Lightning. It was such a big deal over the Rivian for me as far as loading it up with stuff and everything. Because Rivian, you have to pick everything up over. Now the Cybertruck does have the low loading section, but I mean, it almost doesn't need it because what are you going to put in there? 3 bags of mulch. I think I had like 14 bags of mulch in the Lightning's frunk. So it's got other features that are really cool, but the frunk is not going to be what everybody buys a Cybertruck for.
Yeah, no, it looks like it's not going to be that. It has gone through some amount of crash testing now. I think there's some pictures online of people spotted it on the back of a truck coming back from doing its rollover testing, I'm not sure if it rolled over or not, but some airbags went off. I don't know exactly what happens in that test, so it's hard to judge exactly how it fared. But I guess we'll find out soon enough, no doubt. Those are usually made public. All right, so I guess that probably brings us to the end of our show. Yes. If you have any, I'm getting weird WhatsApp comments. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave them on below or get in touch with us on Twitter, where we are Batteries Inc. Pod, or on Threads, where we are at Batteries Included Podcast. You can also find Martin when he's here and when he's not here. He's off this week. Hopefully he'll be joining us next week. Hopefully next week will be his first full week back, and he left a message with us last week. So if you're curious about what's up with him, you can check out last week's episode at the beginning, and Martin shares his story with us there. So you can follow him on Twitter or Threads at EV News Daily. On Twitter, Tom is at Tomolog with 2 M's, and Tomologny on Threads. I'm Dominic Yoni on Threads and in real life. Kyle is at It's Kyle Connor on Twitter and goes by Virtual Kyle on Threads. Don't forget, you can, if you like the show, even if you don't like the show, please give us a thumbs up. We need your thumbs. Click subscribe and tap that bell icon for notifications. Thank you very much for joining us this week, and we'll see you all again next time soon.
Thanks,
Ciao.
everyone.
All right.